Welcome back to Chicks Talking Shift. I'm Alicia Rice.
And I'm Angel Carlton.
Hey, Angel, how you doing, girlfriend?
I am doing really well. Really well. Thank you. How about you?
I'm doing good too. What's been going on in your life lately? Anything?
Oh gosh. Well, this huge transition that I'm in. I came to Florida not really knowing what to expect. I had a completely clean slate that I prepared for myself when I arrived here. And it's interesting to see what's showing up. I'm meeting some amazing people, just incredible, good humans are showing up in my life, getting a little bit of a social life going. There are opportunities showing up where I'm speaking and engaging with my message and sharing it with people. And those opportunities are starting to show up, which I'm ultra excited about. I feel like life is starting to kick in and I'm getting a sneak peek at my new life, my new normal, my next normal, whatever you want to call it. I'm really super happy. I'm glad I made this decision to jump and leap off the edge, not knowing what was waiting for me on the other side. But some good stuff is showing up, and I trust that anybody else doing it, that there's some good things waiting for them too. Mm-hmm. How about you? I know you've had some big stuff happening in your life, and I definitely want to talk about that. Tell our listeners a little bit about what you've been up to.
I've got all kinds of stuff going on. A lot of it just home-based stuff that, I'm taking care of things around the house and the property. But the really big thing is, so you remember when we did the podcast back in February with Erin Browning? It's called Growing with Grief.
Oh gosh, of course. Very, very moving, touching, emotional. She was right in smack in the middle of her grieving process of the loss of her significant other. Very memorable conversation that we had with Erin, of course.
Yeah. Well, it's one of our most popular podcasts. And I think one of the reasons is, first of all, her story, I think, is very relatable to a lot of people. And there's been a lot of grief, whether you've lost someone like she has, or just the general loss that we've had about being able to come and go and relationships and people not being able to see their grandkids for a long time with COVID and those sort of things. There's a lot of loss of jobs. All of these things bring up grief. One of the things that's happened is this past weekend, 6 months after her partner Dave died, we had a celebration of life ceremony for him that I officiated. It was an absolutely amazing experience. The number of people that showed up after 6 months after he transitioned was just absolutely amazing. And so we had this wonderful celebration. It truly was a celebration that was just so impactful, and that I'm still getting comments about and still realizing gifts that were in it for myself that I didn't even realize before I did it. It's just really, really interesting to see the ripple effect that both Dave's life had on the world, as well as the ripple effects that's happening in people's lives that knew him, like myself. So I'm still processing, but it was absolutely amazing.
Very powerful. Alicia, well, that's one of your superpowers, your gifts. You create that ripple effect in people's lives. You just do. I mean, you've probably touched millions of people that you don't even know.
through millions.
Yes, millions. Masses. And hey, I mean, you're doing it now right here. I had the honor of watching the video of that celebration of life, and I did not know David Smoot. Never met the man. I know him now. I laughed. I cried. I was emotionally moved through the entire ceremony, if you want to call it a ceremony or celebration. Your message was so incredibly powerful. What I thought was the most powerful moment of the message that you shared was an exercise that you did. I would like to invite you to do that now for our listeners to set the tone for this conversation as we are going out into the world, a new world, a changed world, as changed beings with a clean slate. The chalkboard has been erased and the chalk is in our hand.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we get to create whatever life we're creating. And so I think this exercise, and you know what I'm talking about, is just going to set the tone for this conversation.
Let me preface it by saying I love reading. Several decades ago, I read the book. You remember, you've heard of it, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen
I
Covey.
use it in my leadership training all the time.
Of course you do.
Powerful. Yeah.
Excellent. It's an excellent book.
Yes.
And so there was an exercise in that book. It was called Begin with the End in Mind. I read that book when I was just in my late 20s. But that was such a powerful exercise. It had a deeply profound effect on me. It stuck with me for all of this time. So thank you for inviting me to share it because it impacted me so strongly. So I think you're right. I think it would be great to share it with our listeners. So let's begin by shutting your eyes.
Unless, of course, you're driving.
If you're not in a safe place to shut your eyes, then don't do it.
Right.
Good for you, sister. We're safety people here.
Right. Safety first. Yes.
Yes, Chicks Talking Shift is all about safety.
We do no harm, right? Yoga.
Yes, no harm. Absolutely. Okay. So if you're in a safe place, shut your eyes. In your mind's eye, see yourself going to the funeral of a loved one. Picture yourself getting dressed, driving to the funeral parlor, and getting out of the car. As you walk into the building, you see and smell the flowers, and you hear the soft organ music playing. You see the faces of friends and family that pass you along the way. You feel the shared sadness that radiates from the hearts of the people you have known who have gathered there. As you walk to the front of the room and you look inside the casket, you suddenly come face to face with yourself. This is your funeral. All of these people have come to honor you, to express love and appreciation for your life. As you take a seat and you wait for the services to begin, you look at the program in your hand and you see that there will be 4 different kinds of speakers. The first are family and extended family members that have come in from all around the country. The second are your closest friends who can really give a strong sense of who you were as a person. The third are people from your work or your profession. And the fourth is someone from your church or a community organization where you were involved with being of service. Now, consider deeply what you would like each of these people to be able to say about you and your life. What kind of wife, husband, father, or mother would you like their words to reflect? What kind of son or daughter or cousin? What kind of friend? What kind of working associate? What character would you like them to have seen in you? What kinds of contributions or achievements would you want them to remember? Look carefully at the people around you there. What are they saying about how you lived your life? What did your life mean to them? What impact did it have on them? What did they most appreciate about you? What have they lost with your passing? What legacy would you like to leave behind? You can open your eyes now. At times like this, it's hard not to reflect on our own mortality and way of being. So here's the good news. You aren't dead yet. It's not too late, and you can still change the outcome. This eulogy exercise is not theoretical. You will eventually die, and it will come sooner than you expect. That's just reality. You can take the steps necessary to begin shaping these eulogies and the outcome of your life by being and doing those things right now. None of us are promised tomorrow. Any of us could be taken at any time. So if we want people to be able to remember us in a certain light, we have to be and do those things now, so they'll actually be able to say them. So, ponder if you need to make a phone call, rekindle a relationship, or be more intentional with those you love. Wouldn't it be worth the effort to make things better? What will the most important people in your life say once you're gone? Simmer with that for a little while.
Extremely powerful. My goodness. I have thought about so many people while my eyes were closed and what they would say. And I thought about things that I never said to certain people that need to be said, whether it's an apology, what I loved about them, what I admired about them, how I felt about them, that they had no idea. It wasn't so much about what they would say about me, it was about what I hadn't said about them. That was what I got out of that. Ooh, that just that gave me chills. As we are stepping out, it seemed like 2020, there was so many disruptions in our relationships and anger and conflicts and some regrets now that things are starting to balance out again after the political divisiveness and everything that had taken place throughout that crazy year. You said the other day, it's time to let the chains fall.
Yes.
Let the chains fall.
Yeah. Lighten the load.
Yeah, I know. What will they say was the theme of your incredible message
Yes.
for David's celebration. That's a theme that we should carry with us every day as we step back into the world. Every
Yes.
day. What will they say about who you are and your character? I think living life with that perspective is something we all should tap into. Again, become that observer, third party of your own life as you step through it.
Mhm.
That higher consciousness, as we're watching our physical selves behave in ways that serve us or not serve us. And if you're behaving in a way that is not in alignment with who you'd like to be at the end of your life, then yeah, you're right. It's never too late to change it.
You made such a good point, Angel, about coming out of that exercise for you, especially because you'd already been through it with the video. What you got was, would you never get the opportunity to say about other people? And see, that's the whole thing for me that's a little bit of a rub about the celebration of life after someone dies, is the fact that people come out of the woodwork that haven't been around for decades to pay respect to people that have passed. And it seems like then all of these very touching, heartwarming stories are shared between people that were never shared before. When I feel that, it feels like it almost has the potential of adding a bit more pain, because now I'm hearing stories about my loved one, because we all know different people in different ways, right? A boss is going to know somebody different than a child. A friend's going to know you different than somebody that dislikes you. A parent's going to know you different than a lover. And so we've got a huge number of facets to our personality, and we have a tendency to connect in different ways with different people with different commonalities and different personalities and stuff. And so there are many facets of the people that we're closest to, the very closest to, that we've never experienced because they're different people with these other people. And so all of a sudden we get these very touching stories about who they were. And it's like, oh, I didn't know that. Now all that sudden that person is elevated even more in my eyes. And I didn't get to share that part of who they were. I think we need to have celebrations of life while people are still alive. They need to be part of, this is what I loved about them. They were so unselfish. They were always there for people that cared about them. They had the best heart. They did this for me when I was desperate or I was on my last dollar. All of those things. The person that we're talking about should be able to be elevated in our presence for the beauty of who they are, especially in front of other people. Look, it's a really good idea for us to share with people what they mean to us while they're here, to your point. But at the same time, sharing it publicly and celebrating who they are in front of other people, to me, I think we'd all be much better off if we chose to do that when people were alive instead of waiting for a funeral or a celebration of life after their passing.
What a gift to give to any one person to hear those stories. I know I want to end this life knowing I impacted somebody. I know that would mean the world to me. And I have to trust that when I transition to the other side, I'm going to see all of it. I'm going to have a really good understanding of what everybody thought and how they felt, and if I made an impact or if I broke their heart or whatever. I think honoring somebody like that, that could be the greatest honor. I think we need to start this new tradition. Maybe that's what our birthdays should be. I
Well,
like it.
that's always been a big thing for me, from a spiritual perspective. And we all have different beliefs about if there's an afterlife, how it happens, and all of that. But traditionally, one of the things that we hear about is kind of an afterlife review, that you get to revisit and relive everything that you were while you were here, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Although being not in a human body anymore, I think that my perspective of it is that it's a more neutral, bearing witness to the texture of who you were without necessarily the emotional weight of the places that you were imperfect as a human, how you hurt people, that sort of thing. Almost bearing witness to, oh, yeah, I see that. Not judging yourself, but realizing, oh, I probably could have done that better. And my spin on it is, okay, I hope we get that life review as a way to reconsider through a neutral lens what that life was about, who we were, and how we impacted people. But even more, what I'm hoping is that there's another layer of it that allows us to also see the larger ripple effect that happened through the people that we touched as they went on to impact other people.
Mm,
Because we might be thinking, oh, well, it's only those people. We shouldn't think that way, but it is. But we never know who that person is going to connect with sitting next to an airplane, that what you said changed their perspective. And then they went on to speak to somebody else. We could be impacting the whole Kevin Bacon, what is it, 60
right.
we could be impacting world leaders and not have any clue because we don't know what that ripple effect is. So I think that would be a beautiful addition to the
Yes.
life review, is to be able to see the positive impact and the influence that we had on others. And just like you and I are both cut from the same cloth. I mean, first and foremost, for me, it's my life is about my spirituality, managing myself and my energy, being good in my relationships. But separate from that, really the thing that I hold highest in my high heart and the intention of everything that I do is just trying to make a positive impact and help people walk through life in a little bit lighter, easier, wiser way. That's what you do with your leadership speaking and all of the empowerment talks that you do about people, is that you help return people to themselves. I was teasing somebody the other day. When I moved to West Virginia from California, I'd only been to a couple of funerals before then. When I moved to West Virginia, it was interesting to me because the funerals here, the majority that I've been to, it's a time for the preacher to save people because people are in their space right now where they're thinking about mortality. And so it's a vulnerable time to try to inspire people to do something different with their lives, hence the what will they say exercise. I was taken aback. I hadn't seen anything like that. I didn't know anything about that. And that's just the tradition here. And so one of the things I was teasing about the other day is that the preachers, the pastors, they try to save your soul at funerals. And for me, at funerals and celebration of life, I'm really trying to get you to save yourself,
Hmm.
to really
Yes.
connect with yourself and what's important within your life and what you want to be and what you want to do.
Say, yes, you do that. You do. You save lives. And
Mhm.
we don't know how many lives we're saving by just smiling.
Yes.
It reminds me, I was scrolling through LinkedIn, and I think it's called Everyday Heroes or something, some organization that I'm following, and they share these really highly inspirational stories of people. And I saw one of some bridge in Asia where people notoriously go to commit suicide. And there is a man that goes there every day to prevent people from committing suicide. He has literally saved 321 lives. He goes up to them and hugs them and holds them. It's just amazing. He doesn't get paid to do that. He just wants to help people live their life to their fullest. That's what you do through your perspective sharing, through helping people clear out the clutter of confusion that's been piled on, all those layers from other people that don't serve us. You hold up the mirror beautifully for people. You've done that for me time and time again. So I always say everybody needs an Alicia in their life.
Oh, that always makes me laugh. I
So
remember
true.
the first time you said it, I'm like, oh my God, that's so funny, but I love it.
Yes. Well, gosh, if you're listening, you've got an Alicia in your life. It's a powerful, powerful force to have on your side. I will say that. I invite whoever's listening to heal the relationships in your life, because at the end of the day, relationships are the only way we know our true selves. We wouldn't know ourselves unless it was in relationship to someone or something.
Yes.
It's like what Neil Donald Walsh wrote in Conversations with God. And it was the first time I really read it and it resonated We don't really know what hot is until we know what cold feels like. We don't
Yes.
know what up really truly is until we know what down looks like. The left and the right, you don't know that unless it's in relationship to each other. And our relationships are the same way. They're there to show us an aspect of ourselves. And so when you're talking about David's celebration of life and all the different facets of how he was this person to that person, and he may have been something totally different to his best friend growing up versus his aunt. It reflects back to us all of these different facets of who we are. And so many times in our relationships, it's not about healing the relationship as much as it is about healing something within us that's being reflected through that relationship. I remember attending a wedding a few years ago, and one of my old friends was there, an old male friend. I just remember he and I laughing all the time when we'd hang out. And so I was so excited that I got to hang out with him at this wedding, and we had a great time. And he revealed to me during the evening that I had broken his heart. And I had no idea.
I figure you've broken a lot of hearts,
I had no idea.
not intentionally.
Totally unintentionally. Totally. Because once you're my friend, you're in my heart forever, and that's where you are. And I I see people as souls. It's kind of my superpower. It's a blessing and a curse. And people gravitate towards that and maybe misread it in a way. It was such a beautiful conversation after that, because through that conversation, I healed the broken heart. I helped to heal it. Actually, he helped to heal it through realizing a little bit more about who I am and who I am through my friendship with him. It was just one of those things that if there's a relationship out there that you appreciate, and there might be just a little bit of a disconnect or detachment or discontent or conflict, it's because there's a part of them that hasn't been healed, or a part of you that hasn't been healed. So there's something very powerful in doing it while you're alive before the end of your time, and free you up from all of that. Your message was extremely powerful. I got very emotional. Again, I got emotional when I watched the video. It was very touching.
That brings us to, we wanted to just have a little bit of a conversation around a clean slate. You call it a clean slate, I call it a fresh slate. What I learned from moving around so much when I was a kid is that I was always at a brand new school, brand new neighborhood, I just wherever. And what I realized was that there was a silver lining in that. And the silver lining was, whenever I went someplace new, I could recreate myself. Kind of like Lady Gaga, I could be whoever I wanted to be. And I didn't have any of the baggage dogging me of who I'd been before. That's kind of where I've been lately, thinking about us moving out more socially and the world opening up with things post pandemic, is that for most of us, there's been a natural space, a natural distance that's happened for us in our family relationships, in our friendships, in our work relationships, all of these things, because of lockdowns and quarantines and different things like that. There's been a natural space, and it's kind of slowed the connections in our relationships. And
Mhm.
so now, as we step back out, we're going to be re-engaging with people. Some of us has changed a whole lot, some of us just a little, some of us don't even recognize that we've changed yet. If that's true for us, that has also happened for everybody else, because this was a global pandemic. It was different in different countries, but still never the same. There was distance put in our relationships. So I view that as an opportunity for a fresh slate, kind of like moving around when I was a kid. I know that there are many of us who felt somewhat trapped in relationships that weren't serving us very well. Maybe they were maybe they had grown to a place to where they were really tighter than we were really comfortable, but we didn't know how to back out. We didn't know how to bring space. We weren't necessarily bringing the fullness of who we were into the relationship. And once you've got that dance going, it's difficult to alter it. That's where I'm looking at things right now of stepping back out as we re-engage the world, as we re-engage people that there's potentially been a little bit of distance put in those relationships, to be mindful of how we're choosing to step back in. We don't have to step back into the same old dance that we were before. We can step in as the new people that we are, with realizations of, that wasn't really working for me before. And now I'm really clear because things changed. And so I'm not going to recreate that. How do I want to be? Now, the truth is, we're all going to be re-engaging each other, assuming that we're the same people that we were pre-pandemic. Well, about assumptions, right? Makes an ass out of you and me. If we just know ourselves, then we can step in with our voice. We can step in more fully as who we are now, not who we were pre-pandemic, but who we are now. We can bring voice to who we are. And with those things that we had in relationship that weren't serving us before, hopefully we can find a way to bring voice to what our needs are and to be able to set boundaries so we don't end up right back in the same dance again. Now, as you and I have talked before, that's changing the dance and often the choreography. So what's going to happen when you step out differently? There's a lot of people that are going to be trying to get you back to the old dance and the old way of saying, are you sure? They're going to be pushing it, pushing it, pushing it. As the boundary setter and as the one that's clear about what you want your experience to be, it's on you to be clear and to say very clearly and to reinforce and to show up consistently. Yes, I mean this. This is who I am and what I need. And to do it as long as you need to until that dance changes over time and you're now in a dance that feels more in right alignment with who you are and what your needs are in the world.
So important. And I am in a similar situation where I feel others are looking at me like I was the person going through the difficult time, the stress, and I'm not that. I've come out on the other side a different person. I've healed a lot of that through the past year and a half. And these conversations have been very healing for me. Everything you're talking about, the setting the boundaries and putting those things into practice, being curious, the awareness, all these things that you're reminding me of are so important for us to practice every single day. And having those courageous conversations in a way where it doesn't make the other person wrong.
Yes.
When you do this, don't do that. It's not about those types of conversations. The conversation is about where I am now, what's important to me right now. What's important to me right now is my personal freedom. And sometimes when you do this or say that, it feels like you're putting a damper on my freedom.
Or undermining my freedom.
Undermining my freedom and making me feel badly or guilty about expressing the freedom to be who I am and go and do. And I don't want those limitations. I mean, my theme for 2021 is don't tamper with my vibe. I've got a really good vibe, and anything that's tampering with it, I got to take care of it right now before it builds resentment. I'm very much aware of what is coming into my field that lifts me up and what's coming into my field that is bringing me down. And so there's definitely something in my field I got to deal with. And I know I have to have a courageous conversation to make sure that I stay at a high level of positivity, high frequency, high vibe, happy. This is what I'm choosing to be. So that I think we all need to have. And you're the perfect person to walk people through situations who might need clarity on how to convey a message or even how to understand it in our own minds. of what's really happening. You provide some perspective, a really higher up, top down, that rooftop penthouse view, seeing all perspectives, not making anybody right or wrong, just
Yeah.
here's what the situation is, a very high conscious way of dealing with it beautifully from the heart. It's a very heart-centered approach that you take with people. It's absolutely beautiful. I agree with you, Alicia. I think going out into the world right now, re-engaging with people, I think we should first and foremost sit back with a level of curiosity about how have they changed. Oh,
Yeah.
wow, that's a little different. I wonder what kind of realization they had or epiphany they might have had during isolation that changed them a little bit. And be curious about people and how they've changed. And maybe, they become better people. Sometimes people have spiraled down and become less of themselves,
Yes.
in which case be curious on how you can support them and help them and lift them up.
Yes.
So have that awareness. I invite people to have that awareness for friends, family, loved ones, coworkers. We don't know what people have experienced this
Oh,
past year. We do not know, but have a level of curiosity around it, have the awareness, and then step in when it feels appropriate and ask some questions about what was the most difficult part for you during COVID? What was the best part? Were there any blessings for you?
yes.
Let's have the conversations and be open about it. There's not been a human in the history of this planet that has gone through what we've gone through. So it's impacting all of us differently. And you're spot on.
It's so true what you're saying, Angel, about the conversations. I love the term courageous conversations. What a great way to reconnect from a meaningful place. See, you're speaking my language right now because
Mhm.
as I get with people, that's what I want to talk about. Man, this was some crazy that we went through. How did it affect you? And I'm not talking about it from the soundbite perspective and the virus and vaccines and politics and social justice. None of that. Let's talk, you and I, on a personal level. What did it mean to you? Like you say, the good, bad, and the ugly, right? This is the glue that bonds relationships. These are intimate exchanges that bring revelation, that reveal who we are, and it's decoding where we've been. And I think it helps all of us to be able to bring voice to, oh gosh, that's a good question. Nobody's asked me that, because there's a lot of us that don't know until we start talking about it. And then all of a sudden you hear the words come out of your mouth and you're like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize I felt that way.
Yeah, and when we're in it, it's really hard to describe it. And it was like our conversation with Erin Browning about her grieving process. When I asked the question, begin with the end in mind. What is the highest vision you have on the other side? What does it look like? What visions do you have? And she said, I don't see any right now, because she was grieving so deeply still. As people are coming out of it and we are stepping into that next phase of transformation, of reinventing ourselves, we're able to look back and say, wow, yeah, that was kind of difficult. I really did have a difficult time with it, or it was a wonderful time, or whatever. So we're able to look back. That's how we know we're moving through the transformation process, and we can look back on it. But you're right, being aware that not everybody has really fully moved through it yet, because we are undergoing transformation and everybody's in a different stage. So people might still be in the very first stage of realizing, oh my God, what happened in my life? That's such a great point. I'm personally at a point where I'm starting to celebrate my own resiliency. We all have been so resilient through this. We've had to white knuckle through so much fear and uncertainty and confusion, and we're coming out the other side. And on this clean slate, I believe it is just time to hold that piece of chalk in your hand. Start writing your new story. It's time to start to write a new story of your life. We've never been given this opportunity before until now.
No, you're
So,
yes. We've been
so
through
true.
I know it's a bit, it's so interesting how phrases can be hijacked and then all of a sudden you can't even use them because it triggers people. But we have been through a global reset.
Hmm.
Some call it a great reset, some call it the grand reset. Those can have strands that are connected with conspiracy theories and all kinds of stuff. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm just talking about the fact that, as you say, never in the history of the planet has all of humanity had the very same storm all at the same time. Different boats, same storm. And so we have been through a grand reboot, the freshest of slates. So it's not just about our relationships. It's also paying attention to how we're engaging the world out there. What are we putting up with employers? What are we allowing our governments to do? How are we stepping in to help shift and alter the trajectory that we were on? Because the truth is, a whole lot of where we were headed was not a very good direction. And now's this liminal time. It's the space in between where it's the goo aspect of the caterpillar, where we are just now coming out and reforming who we were, what we would put up with on the micro scale as well as the macro scale. So it's even more than just about our relationships. It's about trying our best to bring voice and action to the things that are unjust and not falling back into lockstep with what they, whoever they are, tell us that we have to do. I think we're realizing that just the work at home alone has shown a lot of people that, why do we have to clock into the minute? And if we're 30 seconds late, we get a ding. And if we get 3 dings, then now we don't have a job. Why do we have to be that tightly controlled? I realize that there are certain types of jobs that have to be that way, but not all of them. They don't have to see most of us every day. I understand collaborative efforts are much better in person. And there are a wide variety of jobs that we just have to show up for. But we've learned something. It doesn't always have to be that way. And we don't necessarily have to be controlled. As employers are inviting us back or demanding that we come back, it's up to us to bring voice to, no, why is it this way? Not just because it's always been done that way. That's not good enough anymore.
It's not. What an excellent point. Well, as we wrap up another wonderful conversation, what final thoughts do you have?
I guess my final thoughts would be just about know what's going on within yourself. Pay attention to your subtle feelings. Make choices based upon what's right and good for you. And set those boundaries. Bring voice to things that are important to you so that you don't fall back into the traps and the patterns and the routines that allowed people to treat you a certain way. Try your best to bring voice to that. No matter, it can be on a micro scale, on a very, very small scale, but try to do a little bit more than you felt that you can do before. And what you'll realize is that you will baby step your way to success and to a life that's better than you might have ever thought possible. And just embrace the fact that we're in Clean Slateville. We've got fresh slates. Recreate those relationships. Recreate that life from a mindful, conscious place so that you can rise up and be the best that you can possibly be while you're here and have the most positive impact on others in the world around you as possible.
That is what it's all about. I couldn't have said it better myself. And I will close by saying the 4 magical words that we opened this conversation with, and that is, what will they say. Live your life that way. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.